Benefits of the manual, I kind of hit on that. But here's some clear things on why the manual could be a benefit to you. I want consistency in my effectiveness. See, I wasn't consistent before I started using the manual. Sometimes I'd be able to fill a vacancy in 1 week. Sometimes it would take me a month. Now I'm much more consistent in terms of being able to fill it within 3 days because I'm following the checklist. Checklists help you to be consistent. And who do I hold accountable when things go wrong? Myself. One thing you'll hear from me, I don't blame my residents for any problems. I never blame my residents now. Sure, do they cause some problems? Yeah. But I found out it was a waste of time for me to simply put the blame on them. Anytime there's an issue, there's a challenge, somebody doesn't pay me, somebody tears up the place, somebody doesn't do what they're supposed to do, I don't put the blame on them, which is what a lot of landlords do. They complain and blame. Not me. I do a Michael Jackson, I do a man in the mirror, I look in the mirror and say, what can I do differently to get the results that I want? So my procedures manual is what holds me, what I hold accountable. So when something doesn't go wrong, the first thing I do is, well, I check to make sure that either I or the assistant followed the checklist. That's the first step. If they followed or if I followed the checklist, then what do I need to do? And it didn't work out. What do I need to do? Update the checklist. There's something I need to add to the checklist. And checklists change. I'm sharing with you now things in terms of where I stand right now with my checklist, but checklists change. Those of you that heard me 2 years ago or 3 years ago when you came to a boot camp, you'll see a lot of the things are consistent in what I'm sharing, but you'll see also that I've tweaked a little bit here, a little bit here, a little bit here. And each tweak can add thousands of dollars to my cash flow, and it can add thousands of dollars to your cash flow. Distance landlord or replication, personal example, saved me tens of thousands of dollars. At one point, I used a professional property manager to manage my properties because I thought that was the thing to do. I thought that was the way I should get my freedom. And I'm not getting ready to knock property managers. I don't know, maybe, is everybody in the room a professional property manager? Is that a yes? Okay. So I'm not here to knock professional property managers. In fact, I applaud this person in the back who's here.
I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. All right. Property managers, I'm not here to knock them. But it's only 15% of them, 10 to 15% that are really good. And that's not to say anything against property managers, because guess what? As far as landlords go, there's only 10 to 15% of them that are really good. It's with any profession. Most people in any profession are so-so. They're just doing enough to get by, doing enough to get the job done. But that's not who I wanted. Now, I did find one property manager that was working really well for me. In fact, the owner of the property management company came to my training. And so when I thought, and this was way back as I was growing, and I've been doing trainings for a long time. So as I was growing, I said, you know what? Since this guy came to my training, utilizing one of his managers might be a good thing. So I did so. They actually did a good job. But as time went on, they started adding to the percentage that they wanted to charge me. I also noted that they had some fees that they were adding on, not to me, but to the resident, that I wasn't participating in the revenue of that. And I looked at that one day, I said, wait a minute. In fact, one specific example was a resident who didn't pay, and they got the late fee, and then it went a little bit further, and they had to do the court costs, and they charged an administrative fee for the court costs. And then when they went to court, there was a fee to go to court. I'm not talking about a fee to pay the attorney. I'm talking about a fee to pay the manager to go to court. And so and then the resident ended up paying, but I saw that there was like $200 to $300 that had been added on from the late fees and the admin fees and the representation in court fees. So I said, and I wouldn't get any part of that revenue. I said, wait a minute. Maybe I can do the same thing myself and even have greater control over what's going on. Because I wasn't using checklists at this point. I was doing training. I had multiple ideas. I considered myself a level 3 landlord at that point. A level 3 landlord is somebody who has a whole lot of ideas. He or she has a whole lot of ideas that they're using. But I wasn't really doing checklists. I said, I need to go to level 4, where checklists, I'm running my business by a checklist. And once I had those checklists in place, I said, I can do this. I can take the place of this professional property manager, and I did. Saved me literally tens of thousands. In fact, I would dare say probably going close, well, I won't say over $100,000 a year, but it was tens of thousands, because with the property manager, professional one, I figured that they were receiving between the fees, added income, and the percentage that they got from me, they were getting close to $120,000 a year. After I hired an assistant and paid that assistant $40,000 to do everything that the professional property manager, and do it based on what I wanted them to do, right there I say to myself, well, you can do the math. So again, I'm not trying to knock professional property managers. In fact, if you find one that's really, really good in your area, that's really good, they're worth it. If they're really good, if they're one of the 10 to 15%. But one of the things that I like to do, because I know that 80 to 85% of landlords deal with property managers that are so-so, I like to be able to offer you an alternative way of doing things. And that alternative way is you get yourself in a position where you know how your business should be run, you have checklists in place, and now you can hire assistants to work with you, to give you the freedom that you want, but still have the type of have it run the way you want it run. And that even helps. So I can replicate myself with the manual. Long distance landlord. Anybody have properties outside of this, outside of your state? Okay. Well, for me, when I first started doing managing property, I was always told, do it within 30 miles, 45 miles, driving distance of where you own property. And I'm glad I did that at the beginning, because I made a whole lot of mistakes. And I'll come to your question in 1 second. I made a whole lot of mistakes. So it was important that I should be close to the property. Now, because I've got systems in place, because I've got checklists, now I feel totally comfortable if I were to purchase a property outside of my local area, because I know I can run it because I'm running it based on checklists. In fact, most professional property managers, it's not like they run out to your property anyway. Anything that comes up, well, they do go out to lease it. And there's so many ways to fill a vacancy now that you don't necessarily need to have somebody going out to show the property. But point is, most of the calls that they handle is things that, whether the property is 5 miles away or 500 miles away, they're doing pretty much the same thing. Now, you had a question, sir?
Are checklists unique to a property?
What do you mean, are checklists unique? They could be. They could be. The checklists that I provide for you in your procedures manual, they're not per se for specific properties. In fact, you bring up a good question. In the checklist, in the procedures manual that I'm making available to you that you've obtained, it's important that you know this. Under each category, whether it's filling vacancies, resident retention, maximizing cash flow, the goal is for you to come up with your own checklist. In the manual that I provide for you, I'm one that comes up with many options. So I'll give you several ways to fill vacancies, several ways to retain residents, several ways to increase cash flow. As you personalize it, and at the end of each section of your manual, there's a place where you can start to put your own from the ideas that are in it. You put the ones that you feel most comfortable with, the ones you're ready to do, the ones you are going to use as part of your game plan. My point is, some of the ideas, because I offer multiple things, some of the ideas I may use with my economy rentals, and some of the ideas I may use more with my upper end rentals. So I guess in that sense, yes, checklists could be customized or pertaining more to different types or categories of properties. So I have a different approach that I use for my lower income that I do for my upper income. Does that make sense? In fact, one person came to my boot camp and he said, I'm tired of dealing with rental property. So I came so I can get your procedures manual. I said, okay. And what he did was he got the procedures manual, took out the cover, put in another cover on it, put the name of his company on it, hired an assistant and said, here, go for it. True story. I know it's a true story because 6 months later when I did another retreat, he realized, one, that there's multiple things for each category, so you can't just give it to somebody who doesn't have any idea. So the next time he came, he brought his assistant with him. And so that they could get a clear picture of, wait a minute, what is this guy talking about and what is this procedures manual all about? He said it helped him some, but it also added a little bit of confusion because he didn't stop to say, wait a minute, for our properties, here's what I want you to do. Make sense what I'm sharing? All right. So again, if you do some long distance landlording, I would strongly suggest that you have checklists in place. Multi-generational wealth. Another benefit of this. Studies show that wealth doesn't go beyond the generation, for the most part. And to go beyond 2 generations is becoming more and more a rarity. If I really want my sons, in fact, let me back up. Any of you have children? Any of you want your children to inherit some of the properties? Just throw this out. I don't know if it's true in your case, but for many sons and daughters of landlords, they don't want your business. They don't want the properties. It's not so much that they don't want the wealth. They don't want the deal and hassle that comes with it that they see oftentimes even with you. And so the idea of taking on the things that you're doing, for many young people, that's not what they want to do. I'm fortunate that one of my 2 sons enjoys real estate. In fact, he's doing well with real estate. I helped him in fact, the way he got involved with it, a lot was by coming to events that I sponsored, not listening to Dad, but listening to other speakers and getting excited about this thing. And so, in fact, I would encourage you, if you have any children that you think would like to get into this business, you should be exposing them to not just your own self, but to other speakers as well, because perhaps they may connect with hearing somebody else other than just you. But the real point that I want to make here is, if I really want my sons or anyone underneath me or side by side with me to be involved in real estate and be part of it, then I need to make it as easy as possible for them to do so. You don't want a situation where they end up inheriting the property and have the slightest idea how to do it. Because now it's a struggle. Now it's a bunch of headaches. I'm not looking to the goal shouldn't be to give somebody a bunch of headaches. So now, because I've gone through the different levels of landlording, I've got assistants in place that's basically running the properties. All I'm doing is managing them. Now, if either of my sons wants to have or inherit some of the property, they're not immediately having to jump in and start doing everything. It's already in place. Is everybody with me? It's almost like they're taking over a franchise. Doesn't mean they don't do anything, but it's a whole lot easier to manage something in place than to take everything on yourself and have to figure it out as you go. So, again, I just share that with you for those of you that have children or any relative that you are that you think would be interested in doing what you do or taking on what you have, make it easier for them. Have your thing in place and get to the point where you got even somebody assisting you in doing it. So when they take over the transition, they're not taking over everything that has to be done. And when I talk about delegating, at some point I may mention this later, but I'll say it right now. Sometimes when people hear me say delegate, they think, okay, Jeffrey, that's fine. After I get up to a certain number of rentals, I'll delegate. My suggestion to you is, as you put checklists in place and you know all the different aspects of your business, start to delegate little things. It's not the thing where I'm saying to you, wait till you get to a certain plateau and then start delegating, because that's what a lot of landlords do. They think that, okay, I'm going to run this thing, I'm going to run it, and once I can't handle it anymore, I'm going to turn it over to somebody. No, that's not my suggestion. My suggestion to you is, hey, get your systems in place, get your checklists in place, and then little parts, like one of my sons, early on, I turned over when I advertise on the internet, I said, I'd like you to handle that for me. I didn't just say I want you to handle it. I said, here are the sites, the checklist, here are the sites, the internet sites that I want you to use, whether it be Zillow or what have you. I want you to use these. Plus, he could do it faster than I could anyway. I mean, it would take me, I don't know, an hour to do all the different sites that I want to do. He can do it in 10 minutes. So he's far more effective at it, but he's used to using the internet and sites a whole lot. So I utilized his strength over mine, and it was a win-win situation. He got some money for doing so. And so, again, what's my point? My point here is I did that early on. I didn't wait till I got up to this where I am now to say, help me. No, let's start assisting me now. And by the way, that freed me up so I can focus on other parts of my business. See, when you're doing every aspect of your business, that makes it a little tougher, folks. You miss things. At least I did. I'll put it that way. I would miss things because I couldn't get everything done. So when he took over that one little aspect, now I could focus on some of the other aspects and become more effective in the other aspects while that aspect was being increased in effectiveness. Everybody with me? All right. And should he decide at one point to take over a property or two, he's one step closer to knowing what's involved as well. Using the manual, training moving forward, most valuable tool, update annually. I update mine annually. Each tweak is worth a lot to me. The manual title ties in the training utilization, where it's called Priorities, Programs, and Procedures. Here's how this thing works, how the manual works. At the beginning of each section, each management section, I start off with my goals, my benchmarks. In other words, filling vacancy, for example, I have benchmarks that I shoot for, which may include how many people inquire each week, each month, how many people actually fill out an application. Why do I have benchmarks? Because when I contact my assistant, I don't just say, have we filled the vacancy? I say, have we reached our benchmark in terms of the number of inquiries this week? Why is that? What's the difference there? The difference there is a lot of landlords are filling vacancies, trying to, but they don't break it down into what's involved in the steps to be able to fill the vacancy. See, I've broken it down. If we do these different things, the vacancy is going to be filled. If we get so many applicants each week or each month, we are going to fill the vacancy, because that's what our track record has shown. So when I contact the assistant, I just say, did we reach our benchmark? If we didn't reach the benchmark, what didn't we do in the, well, in fact, we've got the benchmarks, and In fact, we got, now that wasn't my phone, correct? We've got overall objectives, then we've got sub-objectives, benchmarks, and then we got procedures. If we don't reach, if the benchmarks aren't being reached, what do I then look at? The procedures. Have we done everything procedure-wise to accomplish reaching the benchmark? Everybody with me? It makes that's how I can manage my assistants. Don't just call up and say, do you have everything filled? No, did you reach your benchmarks? Kind of like, what's a coach of Alabama? Nick Saban? Am I pronouncing it right? I like listening to him talk a lot of times because he's never talking about necessarily, does he think does he think we're going to win this week? He says it's always, if we follow the process, if everybody's doing their role, we're going to win. He's all about doing things systematically, following the process. That's how I want to run my business, where in which, here's what we got to do. As long as we're doing that, we're going to accomplish our goal. So in the manual, we talk about performance indicators, which are benchmarks. What are your priorities? What are your procedures? Another word for procedures is action steps. And at the end of each chapter, there's forms that go along with that particular chapter.